3157 Shock and awe. The world had been rocked by astonishing news. One stunning announcement followed another. Just a few years ago, Supremes had been singular beings, each no different from a cardinal direction, but now, 6 new sovereigns rose to the throne of supremacy at the same time. And they weren't just anybody, either. Each was a famed figure, either widely beloved or deeply feared, the stories of their various deeds having long become modern folklore. The news caused a great uproar. People were stunned and rattled, feeling the foundations of the world shaking beneath them. They had many reasons to feel wary and alarmed, but strangely enough, most of all, they were elated. In the brief period of time since the first sovereigns revealed themselves, the very word became synonymous with strife and calamity. It wasn't long ago when most of the Supremes were known to have caused great harm to humanity, the Queen of Worms, the King of Swords, his son, the King of Nothing. Even the Lord of Shadows, who had only lived a few minutes as a Supreme, immediately attempted to betray and kill his comrade and ally, Changing Star. So, it would not be surprising if people were wary of the fact that 6 new sovereigns were walking the earth now. However, the identity of these sovereigns made all the difference. Raised by wolves and Nightingale were widely beloved. Soul Reaper Jet enjoyed the deep loyalty of all government soldiers, even if her reputation was chillingly fearsome. Nightwalker was a living legend, his image influenced by the goodwill people had towards the House of Night. And finally, there were Morgan of Valor and Song Sishan. Even if the Song and Sword domains were no more, countless people had lived and fought under their banners, quite recently, at that. A kingdom was more than its ruler, and while the King of Swords and the Queen of Worms were gone, their legacy remained. So, seeing Valor and Song rise from the ashes brought many people a sense of belonging, as well as an empowering feeling of stability. Instead of being alarmed, people felt happy and more hopeful about the future because of the news of 6 new sovereigns emerging. Supremes were the ultimate champions of humanity in the war against the nightmare creatures, after all, and in the span of a single day, their number had more than doubled. The next news, however, was even more shocking. Lady Nephis of Immortal Flame, the guiding star of humanity, announced that she would step down from her role as the ruler of the human domain and commander of its armies. Not only that, but she would also withdraw from the public entirely, going to face the 5th nightmare in the company of her trusted companion, Song of the Fallen. If the previous news sent humanity into an uproar, then this one caused it to shake. Although Changing Star's reign had been brief, it had also been tectonic. The entire world had rallied around her, ignited with the passion and resolve to push back the encroaching nightmare. Humanity had won countless victories, broadened its territories in the dream realm, nurtured a great sea of new awakened warriors, and begun migrating to a different world. It had achieved immense breakthroughs in both technology and sorcery, settling the vast expanse of untamed lands. Its power to resist the endless tide of nightmare creatures had been greatly enhanced, and even with the advent of the apocalypse, humans were still fighting doggedly to survive and triumph. It was Changing Star's conviction and leadership that had stopped the senseless bloodshed of a civil war, made all these advances possible, and preserved humanity in the early years of the apocalypse. Countless soldiers had been saved by her flames, and many more found hope and solace in her luminous light. And now, their goddess was leaving, perhaps never to return. Even if Nephis of Immortal Flame had made one miracle happen after another, there was no guarantee that she would survive the 5th nightmare. She had not spoken at length about the reason for her decision to challenge it, but people could deduce it themselves. It was to ensure humanity's survival, since being merely supreme, being a woman whose powers seemed deific and who was called a goddess, but wasn't a real deity, was not enough. It did not seem enough to Changing Star, at least. People felt a wide range of emotions regarding her departure, but if there was one thing that united all of these feelings, it was that they were incredibly intense. And while they were consumed by this emotional tempest, the next piece of news arrived. Other things were changing, as well. For 2 years, people in various parts of the dream realm had been expecting the return of their leaders, praying for their safety. The Steward of the West, the Steward of the East, the Steward of the South, people in Ravenheart, Bastion, and the Stormsia had grown used to their rulers, even if their reign had not been a long one. But now that they had returned alive and supreme, it turned out that they would not be returning to their posts. Raised by wolves, Nightingale and Soul Reaper were going to take upon the duty of protecting Earth. Instead, while Song Sishan, Morgan of Valor, Anank of Weave, and Nightwalker would replace them as the rulers of the Dream Realm. In short, things had been changing swiftly in the apocalypse, but now, everything seemed to have changed in an instant. And as people were reeling, the new supremes arrived in the great citadels of humanity to establish their domains. Nightwalker climbed onto the deck of the Night Garden, where the members of his clan were waiting at the front of a crowd of people. He flashed them a smile and then raised a fist, inhaling the salty breeze that blew from the sea with a full chest. In Ravenheart, where the influence of the Song clan had never truly waned due to the popularity of Kisong's daughters, a sea of people gathered on the streets, cheering as Sishan, the new queen, walked through it and across the great bridge to the gates of the Jade Palace, followed by her sisters. Even though most members of the Valor family had been eradicated by the King of Nothing and its influence was all but gone, Morgan was met with cheers and ovations as well, a torrent of vermilion flags billowing in the wind behind her as a column of ascended knights followed her on mighty echo mounts. The steel of their heavy armor glistened in the sun, resembling a river of steel that flowed toward the Mirror Lake. Sunny, Effie, Kai, and Jet watched the procession from the shore of the Ivory Island high above, sitting leisurely on the emerald grass and sharing a bottle. None of them could really get drunk, but the taste of good wine was still pleasant on a warm day like today. Look at her go. Effie clicked her tongue and took a large sip, letting out a satisfied sigh afterward. Then, she raised the bottle and said in a bright tone, "To Morgan of Valor, long may she reign. Ah, say what you want about that woman, but she really knows how to throw a parade." She paused for a moment, took another sip, and smiled. "And to us. Let's drink together again, the four of us, after this whole fifth nightmare business is over."